Greetings everybody, Fu here with part 14 of your Republic Commando build thread. We're going to go ahead and get the chest and back assembled. What I've done is I've already gone ahead and shimmed the sides and the top, as well as cut that angle that we talked about after we measured where our abs were going to be. For myself, it ended up being triangular pieces for the way the angle met, and that's what I ended up cutting off the back. And if you're when you're eyeballing it, if they don't match up, just do the math and make sure that you're cutting the same amount on both sides so you don't get lopsided. Also on the shoulders, I took off the back portion of the strap. I marked where they overlapped, measured it out, and I took that much off the back strap. The reason I didn't use the front, I want to keep this nice curve that's here, and we're going to follow that shape. So you're going to be cutting a 1-inch shim, 1-inch wide shim that's about 5 inches long, and that's a narrow enough piece that you can bend it a little bit by hand, get that shape going a little early, and you're going to do half on the back, half on the front. But we went ahead and shimmed out the shoulders and the sides on the back piece first because that's where we did our cutting. We want the front to hold the shape as much as possible. I've gone ahead and glued one side together just so it's easier for me to show you the last 3 steps in sequence. I've ground down all of my seams where the glue had squeezed through, ground it down flat. So now we're ready to go ahead and meet those angles up. Our good friend Mr. Devcon is here again. If you're wondering why there hasn't been a video in a while, I decided to use Devcon in a not well ventilated space and found myself naked wearing a porcupine on my head wandering around the New Mexican desert with who I think was Jim Morrison, Jerry Garcia, and Elvis, but I'm not quite sure. Anyway, now that I'm back with it and back in Michigan, here we are for part 14. Remember, on the front half of the shim, it didn't really matter how much glue we used. We just needed a little bit to make sure that it was a solid layer. On the front, we want to glob it on there so that it squeezes up through the seam and we don't have to do as much Bondo work later on. So be generous with the Devcon on these seams. There we go. Change the camera angle a little bit. There we go. Nice and thick on there. You're going to get a deep clamp ready. Line it up close. And make sure to go in at an angle so that you can get other clamps in behind it. And squeeze that extra glue up in there. Do another long clamp from the other side. Remember, the front is what we're clamping here, so you don't actually have to go over the seam. You just have to make sure that the front is hit. And get just the clamps in there as best you can. If you find you can't get another clamp in there, then you're going to have to back off the big one a little bit, because it's better to have multiple clamps than one all the way in and nothing else. And if you see it bubbling up like that, go ahead and smooth out that seam. Make sure it's level. I'm sure you figured out by now how to get this stuff off your fingers. If not, then you've been walking around with hairy palms, and well, your mother told you about that. Okay, there is our sides done. We want to make sure that that seam is met as much as possible. And we've got glue coming up through to make up the difference. Use up any we've got left from that first batch here. Not a whole lot, but we don't want to waste it. When you're putting your shims on the shoulder part, make very sure that it's going to be at the correct angle to match up with where that shoulder strap is going to come in. Because if that's off, you're going to end up grinding your piece down, you're not going to have as much strength on the joint, and this is going to be carrying some weight from the shoulder bells and attachments especially. So line it up best you can. Some of your clamps you'll find are stronger than others, so make sure you've got your strongest clamps picked out for this one, because you really want that to get a good bite. And again, wipe your excess, otherwise you're going to have to grind it later. Chest has got enough flexibility to it, you can move that strap behind, get it out of the way while you get the glue on the shim. So you're cutting two 1-inch wide strips, about 5 inches long for the shoulders, and for the sides I used a 1.5 inch wide strip, 7 inches long, which should cover the length of the sides. And again, you've pre-measured all this so you know they're going to fit, and you've got your clamps ready. Smooth your excess there. Didn't like that clamp anyway. Okay, so I've got shoulders and both sides done. We're gonna let that harden, and again, give that the full 24. You're not doing any reason to mess with that anytime in the short process here anyway. So that is the chest and back for part 14. We'll see you in part 15, where we will get into the much anticipated knees.